I want you to imagine the following scenario. A runaway trolley is headed down the tracks towards 5 workmen who will be killed if the trolley proceeds on its present course. You're on a footbridge over the tracks between the oncoming trolley and the 5 workmen. Next to you is a stranger who happens to be very large. The only way to save the 5 workmen is to push the stranger onto the tracks below, where his large body will stop the oncoming trolley and save the 5 workmen. Now the 5 workmen will be saved, but the stranger will die if you do this. Would you push a stranger off of a bridge in order to save the 5 workmen? My name is Dana Mueller, and on my research on dopamine and moral judgment, I asked participants to respond to over 30 different moral scenarios like this one. The scenario I just shared with you is an example of a personal conflict scenario, because in order to save the 5 lives, you have to personally harm another individual. So did you choose to save the 5 lives? If so, this is a utilitarian choice. Utilitarianism focuses on the greatest possible outcome. So in this case, saving 5 lives is greater than 1. In my research study, we hypothesized that individuals with higher levels of dopamine and low levels of religiosity would make the most utilitarian choices. So first, each participant completed a survey which included moral judgment scenarios like the one I shared with you, and a religiosity questionnaire. Then, participants completed an EOG test, which gave us an eye blink rate for each participant and an indirect measure of dopamine levels. In the end, we found that there was a negative relationship between religiosity and the proportion of yes judgments for personal conflict scenario types. The higher proportion of yes judgments indicates more utilitarian responses, and so this was consistent with our hypothesis. Now, my research is important for 3 main reasons. First, understanding the moral values of people is important when programming AI, specifically self-driving cars. So for example, humans will be tasked with programming vehicles to make decisions, while other people are present in those vehicles, and those people will have their own moral codes. Second, understanding the moral values of a society is important when planning harm reduction interventions. So for example, a current harm reduction intervention would be a clean needle program. And then finally, my research is related to the current pandemic. Moral judgments are being made around the world as doctors are having to decide between who gets to live and who doesn't. In a real world scenario like this, would you choose as you did before? Would you save the 5 workmen? Would you be the utilitarianist? Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, judges.
I have a question for Dana. Dana, what do you hope to do with your results? What's next with this information?
I'm actually writing up my manuscript now because I just recently graduated, but I'd like to continue to study moral judgments and dopamine at my next graduate level. And so I'm just taking some of this information that I've learned and absorbed through this whole project onto that. And then I will be writing about some of like the current things that have happened with the pandemic. And it's also just been really interesting to see what's all come from this. Although it's an awful situation, it is really interesting from a moral judgment standpoint.
Hi, Dana. I'm interested in how you, what kind of questions did you ask to measure religiosity?
We did the centrality of religiosity scale, and it's a pre-made questionnaire, so you could look it up if you wanted, but a lot of the questions, they were really simple. It was like, how many times do you pray a day? And then like, how strong do you think your relationship is with a higher being? Do you believe in a higher being or not? And then there were also questions about meditation as well. It wasn't just about religion, like it wasn't just about a certain religious view. It was about like more of a spiritual aspect of everyone's life.
All right, thank you.